The Chinese government is touting the Communist Party's decades of leadership in Tibet. It says the party has improved living standards and helped the region grow economically.
The prosperity seen in Tibet today and the wonderful future ahead are due only to the continued leadership of the Chinese Communist Party.
Sunday marks 70 years since what Beijing calls the liberation of Tibet. China's central government and the then regional government of Tibet signed an agreement in 1951. The Chinese government issued a white paper earlier to justify its 7 decades of policy on Tibet. The paper criticizes Western countries. It says Western anti-China forces have continued to interfere in China's Tibetan affairs in an attempt to sabotage its social stability. The paper also accuses the 14th Dalai Lama of provoking incidents to jeopardize peace and stability in Tibet. The Dalai Lama is currently living in exile. The United States has been critical of China's handling of Tibet and has even accused Beijing of committing human rights violations there. The U.S. president is maintaining his focus on Asia. Joe Biden on Friday held his first summit with his South Korean counterpart Moon Jae-in. The two leaders were keen to tout the strength of their alliance and said they'll work toward the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Our two nations also share a willingness to engage diplomatically with the DPRK, to take pragmatic steps that will reduce tensions as we move toward our ultimate goal of denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
President Biden has expressed support for inter-Korean dialogue. South Korea will work to promote progress in inter-Korean relations through close cooperation with the United States and to create a virtuous cycle and dialogue between the U.S. and North Korea.
A joint statement following the meeting stressed the importance of trilateral cooperation among the U.S., South Korea, and Japan towards North Korean issues. Responding to a reporter's question, Biden said he would meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un if there was a commitment to discuss Kim's nuclear weapons program. Biden also said he has appointed veteran State Department official Song Kim as special envoy for North Korea. Meanwhile, the statement also emphasized the importance of preserving peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. The leaders pledged to respect international law, including freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. They said they would promote human rights and the rule of law. However, there was no direct mention of China in the document. Observers say that's because South Korea may not want to risk provoking Beijing. That's in stark contrast to a statement issued last month after a summit between Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide. The two countries objected to what they see as China's unlawful maritime claims and activities in the South China Sea. They also expressed serious concerns over human rights in Hong Kong and the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Officials in Japan are considering extending the state of emergency beyond its scheduled end date of May 31st. Under the current measures, coronavirus infections have failed to decline significantly in 9 prefectures, including Tokyo and Osaka. Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide says the government will study the infection rates before deciding on whether to extend the emergency measures. Some within the government are saying the declaration for the 9 prefectures should be extended to June 20th. On Sunday, the state of emergency was expanded to cover the southern prefecture of Okinawa. Officials in the Okinawa capital, Naha, have opened a vaccination site. The prefecture confirmed 231 new cases on Saturday. The figure is a record number of infections for the second day in a row there. Meanwhile, the northernmost prefecture of Hokkaido, which is under the state of emergency, has reported the largest number of infections in the country for the second consecutive day. Department stores have decided to largely shut down on Saturdays and Sundays, except for shops that sell daily necessities.
Infections have continued to spread, so we have no choice. We just have to be patient.
Nationwide, Japan's health ministry says the number of patients with serious COVID-19 symptoms has hit another record high. 1,303 patients are on ventilators or are being treated in intensive care. That's up 9 from the previous record set 1 day earlier. A high-profile Japanese athlete says there should be discussions over the fate of the Olympics. That's after a senior IOC official said the games can kick off even if Tokyo remains under the state of emergency. Swimmer Irie Ryosuke is a three-time Olympic medalist. He is due to take part in the event this summer. Irie says the organizers should discuss the matter seriously after listening to various opinions. He says he doesn't want to compete if there's any risk. The athlete's remarks came after the IOC Coordination Commission chair held a news conference on Friday. John Coates said IOC officials have observed test events for 5 different sports, even though there is a state of emergency. Coates said all the venues have plans in place to ensure the safety and security of the athletes and the people in Japan. Meanwhile, people due to lead some of the volunteers at the Olympics were in training on Saturday. They received tips online. A decision on spectator numbers for the games is expected next month. Overseas visitors have already been banned. The Olympics is due to start in just 2 months. Global leaders have vowed to make sure coronavirus vaccines are distributed fairly around the world. The group of 20 countries joined an online health summit on Friday. Current G20 chair Italy and the European Union hosted the event.
We must act now to bring the pandemic under control all over the world.
The EU plans to donate 100 million vaccine doses to poorer countries and to help Africa manufacture jabs. Pfizer and other pharmaceutical companies promised to provide a total of 1.3 billion shots to developing nations this year. Chinese President Xi Jinping pledged $3 billion in aid over the next 3 years. Around 1.5 billion vaccine doses have been administered around the world so far, but 85% of that has been in developed countries. Some European countries are getting a taste of freedom as vaccinations ramp up. Berliners are now able to enjoy a drink in their city's famous beer gardens. Crowds of people headed out for a tipple or two in the sunshine after restrictions eased on Friday. But things aren't completely back to normal. Customers must present a negative test result from the last 24 hours or a vaccination certificate.
Das ist einfach toll. Und das hat man so vermisst.
I feel great. I'm happy that the number of infections has dropped and beer gardens and restaurants have reopened.
Major museums and art galleries have also reopened in the German capital, but visitor numbers are restricted. Germany's daily tally of new cases has frequently fallen below 10,000 recently after coming close to 30,000 last month. Over 10 million people, or about 13% of the population, had been vaccinated by Friday. Those were the stories for this hour.
Egyptian mediators have been holding talks to work out details of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, now in its second day. Egypt has been in discussions with Palestinian leaders in both Gaza and the occupied West Bank, as well as with the Israeli government. More than 1 million people are now known to have died from COVID-19 in Latin America and the Caribbean. That's around 30% of the global total of fatalities. Air India has revealed it suffered a cyber attack leading to a breach of data. The personal details of 4.5 million people have been compromised. The Eurovision Song Contest is being held in Rotterdam in a couple of hours' time, the first major global event to take place this year during the pandemic. Spectators will need to have a negative COVID test result. Some performers have had to withdraw already after contracting the virus.